celebrating 10 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Johnny Majors.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. My guest is Coach Johnny Majors. Coach, welcome.
Mighty glad to be here, Halloran, and among your company.
Thank you.
Company.
Where was Coach Majors born?
John Terrell Majors was born May the 21st, 1935, in my grandmother's house, one block from the Lynchburg County Courthouse. I was born in Lynchburg, Tennessee, Moore County, and not in a hospital, but my mother and father had been married a little over a year, and I was born in that house, grew up in that house, and moved away from there to a smaller town, if you think there would be one, in Huntland, Tennessee, 19 miles south of there. But I grew up in a great town, and I had a terrific childhood. We didn't have money, but we had everything.
Had everything. What kind of athlete were you as a young guy?
Well, frankly, this is immodest. I was a very good athlete. We all are good athletes. My father was an outstanding athlete. He was one of the quickest people with a hand-eye coordination I've ever seen in my life. I watched him play baseball, and he did doing the double play or shooting baskets, or he could pass, punt, and run. He had speed, and I was a very good athlete growing up. I was pretty much the leader of the bunch. I only had two young men, well, two boys, my age in Lynchburg, and they lived within the 2 or 3 blocks of me in the county square, and we played every day, kick the can and hide and go seek and ante over, and football, basketball, and baseball, and cowboys and Indians and war games, because that was in the early part of the World War. It was during World War II, right in the heart of it. And I'm the one that normally put the game together, and I was the one probably was a little bit bossy and took advantage of it and maybe made it a little tougher on them if they dropped the pass or missed a tackle and we got
You
scored.
were coaching then.
I was coaching then. Yeah.
So you played in high school and college?
Yes.
Yeah. What sports did you play?
I played football, basketball, and baseball since the time I could sure walk, and I always loved sports. That's all we had. We didn't have a tennis court and no golf course except in the bigger towns around us, which we picked up when I was about 13. My dad took us there. But I played football, basketball, and baseball at Huntland under my father for 3 years before I came to the University of Tennessee. So I was a pretty darn good three-sport athlete and ended up as an adult loving golf and tennis.
All right, so athletics is in your blood. Leadership is in your blood. Talk about your time at the University of Tennessee first as a player.
I wanted to go to UT, but I didn't think I could play anywhere. But I figured if I couldn't, I would go back maybe to Middle Tennessee State or Tennessee Tech and play smaller college. But I wanted to try the big game, and once I came up, not thinking I could play here, I had nightmares in the summer. But my dad was a very honest man and a very supporting father. We had unconditional love for my mother and father, and I have had it from my family since I was married, and my siblings. We stick together and we're tight. And my dad told us, John, you can play anywhere the way you can run the ball, because I could punt and pass and play defense. I believed my dad, but I didn't believe myself.
So you didn't believe you could play at the University of Tennessee. Your father said, anything is possible. Basically, he said, yeah, you can. And you knew that he wouldn't tell you that if it were not true. He wasn't going to just try to make you feel good.
My dad would not lie. He was a very modest, very proud, very smart, very wise man. I knew he would tell me the truth. But down deep, I didn't believe that John Majors myself could play.
So what happened after you said after your first scrimmage, you called home, and that was a really emotional moment for you?
General Nealon was sitting up in the 15th, about the 15th row, and he always wore a coaching type hat, khaki hat, and a khaki pair of Army shorts, and loafers with no socks and no shirt. He sat in the stands with his stopwatch, timing the punters and the passers. And I got knocked around pretty darn good. I don't remember how. I never remember getting bruised or hurt, but I got knocked around a lot. We were playing against the big boys for the first time in my life, the ones I couldn't think I could ever play with. And And I broke a little run about 8 or 10 yards. I'd been breaking 60, 70, 80-yard runs 3 or 4 times a game in Huntland, led the state in scoring and all that stuff. But I knew I couldn't do that here. Well, like 2 or 3 people missed me. Well, I didn't think anything about it. I'm back there trying to run the plays, and the coach would call the next play. And I made a little longer run, 15, and 2 or 3 people missed me. Then I made about a 25-yarder. And about 4 or 5 people missed me. And the safety man kept me from going for a touchdown on a quarterback keeper in the option game. And General Neyland yelled from the stands. And I could hear him because I wasn't paying much attention to that, except it was quite clear. "Who's number 15? He had a booming voice. And Farmer Johnson, who recruited me, was a defensive line coach, played on Neyland's first team in 26. He said, a lot of people didn't think I could play. I was 150 pounds that day. And anyway, skinny. And he said, "Who is number 15? Farmer Johnson said, "That's Majors from Huntland, General." Well, I didn't have time to be thrilled about it, but when the scrimmage was over, I not only survived, I was still alive. I weighed 144 pounds after the scrimmage. I ran from the stadium drive to the corner where the student center is now, and had an Ellis and Ernest drugstore and a payphone. And I called collect, and I know my mother and father were very anxious about me and my confidence. I called home and I said, "Daddy," my dad answered the phone, and I says, "Daddy, they missed tackles in college just like they did in high school." I couldn't believe anybody would ever miss me. It was one of the greatest days of my life.
I guess he was proud of you.
Well, we were proud of my dad and my mother, and we've all been proud of each other for what we have done well. And what we have done well as siblings and me, we had no reason not to be the best we could be, because how good that was, because we had support. Our dad, we were raised at his knee. We learned a lot by just osmosis and seeing him play as an adult pickup teams, organized teams, and he showed us how to do it. He showed us how to make the double play, how to hit the hook shot, how to peel and roll in basketball, and how to hit the jump shot. We were coached for little guys, but he wasn't a smothering, doting father. He gave us a lot of freedom, a lot of free time. We all had chores, working in the garden, doing the weekend washing in the washer and dryer machine, not the dryer, washer and wringer,
right,
and hanging the clothes out. I and my next 4 youngest siblings before Bob came along, and we swept the floor, mopped the floor, washed dishes a lot after dinner and lunch. But we learned to work, but we got to play about 90% of the time, and we were very, very fortunate. They let us play.
Let me take a break here. When we come back, I want to pick up on the rest of your life story, because you had some major successes as both a player and a coach, but you've also had some tough things that you had to push through in building programs. My guest is Johnny Majors. We'll be right back.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
Tennessee called me at one of the worst times for me, because we reached the heights of college football. We're number one.
Right.
And we left a great program. One thing about my career that I'm proud of is that we left every program we had at least in a championship position, and I left it in a strongly competitive position.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. My guest is the Huntland Hornet, Johnny Majors. So kind of walk me through the big moments in your college and coaching career. When you say, these are the big things that happened in my life, kind of step me through.
I started to work in January full-time as an assistant freshman coach. And Coach White was a dynamic coach, a great leader, a very handsome man, and it could be tough. And I like playing for tough coaches, but once you play for them, to do the job, they don't ride you hard. Like my dad and Bowden White, they were outstanding coaches. And I had a great time here and met my wife, and we got married after her sophomore year. Went to Mississippi State as a B team coach with a $6,000 or $7,000 salary, and that was a transition from the Tennessee's single wing and wide tackle 6, which that's all I'd done in high school and college. So I learned the T formation, the I formation, and the Oklahoma defense the 4 years there, and then went to Frank Broyles at Arkansas, who was one of the great coaches in the country. Coached the defensive backs for 3 years and the punters. And then my last year, I was the offensive coordinator, coached the quarterbacks and running backs and the punters and called plays in the press box. One of my greatest experiences. And then the next year, I got the Iowa State job, and one of the toughest jobs in America. They called it a coach's graveyard.
And what happened at Iowa State?
Well, I had a lot of sleepless nights and was very concerned and quite nervous. I wasn't the epitome of confidence, I'll say that, just typical of anything I wanted to do. I wanted to know what I was doing so I didn't embarrass myself. But I got in some tough situations, but we survived. We were 3-7 and 3-7 the first 2 years. They'd been 2-8 the year before I took the job. Then we went 5-6, and the fourth year, we went 8-3 and went to the first bowl game in Iowa State's history. We not only survived, we thrived at Iowa State. We weren't champions, but we lost to the 1, 2, 3 teams in America in '71. The only time in history that 3 teams from one conference have been 1, 2, and 3 after the bowl games. Nebraska 12-0, Oklahoma 11-1, Colorado 10-2. Iowa State was not in the top 10. We were 8-3. Survived, and we went to the Liberty Bowl the next year and lost to Georgia Tech in the last minute with a 2-point play that we didn't make. Then I went to Pittsburgh, and we started from scratch again. They hadn't been to a bowl game in 17 years, and we went to one the first year. They'd been 1-10 the year before, and we were 7-4 the second year, but didn't get a bowl game. You wouldn't think of that today. And then we were 9-3. We won the Sun Bowl, beat Kansas, and then the next year we were 12-0 and won the national championship. So it was a gradual.
Boom, and you made it. So now let's bring you back to Tennessee, because you make it to Tennessee, and boy, this has been what a ride this has been for Johnny Majors. Tell me how you got to Tennessee.
Oh, well, I wanted the job very badly when Doug Dickey went to Florida, and I was at Iowa State, but we had not reached the point where we were in my last 2 years. We were still building, and I was very disappointed because I wanted it very badly. Well, when I was called, I didn't really need the job, and I would never. That's the only job I would have taken it. Now, I wouldn't have taken the Southern Cal job or the Notre Dame job if I'd been offered it. But I would always I wanted to stay, to be frank with you, I wanted to stay in Pittsburgh more than I wanted to come to Tennessee. I've always loved Tennessee. I always came back often. Pittsburgh was the easiest place I ever got adjusted to once I left home. Mm-hmm. It's always hard to leave. The easiest place, and the easiest place to go to and get adjusted, and the hardest place to leave that I ever left. And Tennessee called me at one of the worst times for me, because we'd reached the heights of college football. We're number one.
Right.
And we left a great program. One thing about my career that I'm proud of is that we left every program we had at least in a championship position, and I left it in a strongly competitive position. And but that was the worst time I could ever have been called. Oh, gosh. God, I would.
So why'd you come?
Why did I come here?
Yeah, why'd you? You're set.
Because it was, well, I'd say some of it was ego, and some of it was pride. I mean, a challenge of pride of saying, well, I can be the so-called hero, I guess. It's great to be able to bring your alma mater back up. Bowden White, my coach, brought Tennessee back to glory when he came here from Arkansas, and he also had been at Wyoming. So I'd say that it's some ego on his part there, and a challenge, and it's coming back to home at your alma mater. It's
Let's pause right there, because I want to pick up on that. This is Johnny Majors, and this is Anything is Possible. We'll be right back.
Coming up.
Character above all else. Give it all you got, and make the most of what's to come and the least of what is gone. That's hard to do sometimes, to put that defeat behind you and move on to the next one.
The one and only Johnny Majors is my guest on Anything is Possible. I'm so delighted to have you here today. So when we left off, we were talking about you making the transition to Tennessee. So I asked you why you came to Tennessee, and you said maybe part of it was you wanted to be a hero. Part of it might have been a little ego. The Huntland Hornet wanted to come in and stir up the nest and get it going. So you make a decision to leave a very secure position in Pittsburgh, national champion, everybody calling you wanting to coach, but Tennessee's home, and you have an opportunity to come back and be the hero. So you decide to come back. Tough decision, though.
It's not easy to come back home. People expect a lot of you, and they expect a lot out of me, more so than Pittsburgh had hopes, and Iowa State had hopes, because most of us live in our hopes, not our fears. But we got the job done there. And Tennessee, I think, expected it to be pretty simple. But
how'd you do at Tennessee?
We got a challenging start. It was building a program is not just like this always. It's got some valleys and dips and heights and plateaus, and we had some struggle up to that till about 1983. We went to a bowl game again in '81 and won in '82, but '83 was our first really good team. And from that time, we weren't always outstanding, but we had a solid program from '83 on.
When we did our pre-interview, I was talking to you and I said, what's the toughest thing you've had to overcome? And you said, Halloran, I don't have any reason why I should not have been successful. I had great parents. I had unconditional love and support. I had a great foundation to be successful at whatever I did. I had to build programs. That was difficult. But I went through some difficult things, but I don't know that I had to overcome anything really big. But the elephant in the room is you were asked to leave Tennessee. And I know that was, and I don't want to belabor it, but I know that that was one of those tough things in your life that you had to push through. What was that like?
The only two really major traumatic times in my life, fortunately, is when we lost our brother Bill, and my mother-in-law and my mother and father lost their son Bill when he was a young assistant at Tennessee and got killed. He was in the back seat of a Volkswagen, and he and two other coaches got killed Monday after tying Alabama in 1965 at a crossroads not too far from his house. That was the worst thing in my whole life, and all of us as a family. Number two was getting left out at Tennessee in a situation that I don't want to belabor, but because I had worked with so many good people at Tennessee. And the fans were great. Not all of them all the time. I'd be telling you I feel, but I had great support. Even when we were struggling, people would for every bad letter I'd get 25 to 50 good letters. Hang in there, coach. That and losing my job in 1992, when we had the three best years of my entire career professionally at '89, '90, and '91. And my last year, we were 8-3.
So let me ask you a couple of quick things before you get away, and thank you for spending this time and for sharing your story. I want to know what you've learned about several things, and you can just give me short answers on these. First of all, what have you learned about coaching?
I don't know, you have to be pretty tough hide, and you've got to be able to take criticism. Sometimes it's fair. Often it's fair, sometimes when it's not, and you know it's not truthful. But I've been treated very well by the press overall. And one thing I've always done, and I've always insisted our players do it, you always show up. You look the media in the eye, you look the people in the eye, the people, your fans are the loyal ones, the ones that maybe aren't as loyal, and you look them in the eye and you tell them what the situation is. You don't tell everybody everything you know. That might not take too long for me to do anyway. But you don't tell everything you know, but you don't lie to the media, you don't lie to the public, you don't lie, and you come back and you show up every week and every day, win, lose, or draw.
Show up. What have you learned about players?
I've learned that players like to win. They'll lay it on the line. They want to win. If they have a bad game, sometimes you make a fumble or you throw an interception or you miss a few tackles. It hurts. It hurts the good ones, and they'll bounce back. The players will bounce back. They'll be ready to come back. They'll be disappointed after a loss, but they will bounce back if you show them leadership.
Final thing I want to ask you is, what have you learned about possibility?
I think so many people who come out of very tough situations that I've recruited, and how they get out of those tough situations, whether it's the ghetto or poor background in some small town, whether it's white, black, or what religion they are. If you give a lot of people the right opportunity and show them the way, whether it's a school teacher or a grandparent or a coach, so many of those young men, and I'm sure young women too, who I never coached, will overcome adversity if they have somebody who gives them a chance and shows interest in them and concern for them and gives them some leadership of how to live your life better and studying and reading your books. Young kids, it just breaks my heart to see young kids that don't have a chance. Giving people, adults, politicians, got some awful bad politicians all over this country. People are trying to take us backwards and not giving people an opportunity to get an education, Head Start, all those things, and getting people food in the school if they have to have it when they don't have anything to eat at home. I've been in homes where there wasn't enough to eat, and it makes me want to cry.
One thing I'd like for you to do as we close, I want you to imagine that I'm one of your players. It's a locker room speech, but you're giving me a locker room speech so that I can win in the game of life. You're coaching me to be successful in life. Give me my locker room speech so we can go out and play.
Success in life. Now, my locker room speeches would all be different. Sometimes very short, some of them very, very aggressive.
All right, give me something good.
But to be successful, like my dad told me as a little boy, I love sports. And he told me, John, you don't have to play to please me. But if you play, I expect you to give it all you got. Whatever you're doing, give it all you got, and you have to have the desire to win. A lot of people have it innately. Some people can be built up to it. And character above all else. Character is what we are, and I stress that with our players. We like to recruit character. Coaches can build character, but the people that are great school teachers and parents or grandparents, character above all else, give it all you got, and make the most of what's to come and the least of what is gone. That's hard to do sometimes, to put that defeat behind you and move on to the next one.
I love it. Coach Majors, thank you for coming by today.
Pleasure to be here.
Proof positive that anything is possible. We'll see you next time.